Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's John Davis, and I am here today with my lovely co-host, Tamara Zoner. How are you today, Tamara?
I'm very well. How are you, John?
I am, Tamara, I am giddy excited. Giddy excited. I am a big fan of our guest today. I've been watching him, stalking him cyberly for a while now. And I actually, he's one of my favorite channels. And I am always going there and watching his stuff because I think he's brilliant. And I think he is so well connected. And for anybody who is on Kim Carey's channel, you know him. David Johnson is here with us today. And I think, Tamara, it's going to be a beautiful experience. So do you know much about David at all?
Not much at all. I mean, I know that he's a gifted intuitive, that he has a father who's an artist, and
boy, are you getting this psychically or psychotically?
Yeah, I'm tuning in. But he lives in a beautiful country with wonderful people.
Oh, you're remote viewing too. That's good. That's really good that you're there. That's excellent. That's excellent. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, so I can shut her up. Let me introduce our lovely guest today, Mr. David Johnson. Hello, David. How are you?
Hi there. That's quite an introduction, both of you.
Well, we like to have fun, but I am not lying when I say I'm a fan. I've been watching you for a long time, and I jump when your videos pop up because I want to see them like right away. So why don't you tell our folks who don't know about you, who you are and what you do and how you got into this weird world that you're in.
Okay. Well, how much time you got? 1 minute, two?
Exactly. We have as long as you want. I know how to edit.
Okay. That's good because I can be quite talkative. Let's just start out like a few interesting experiences as a child. I was raised by completely agnostic parents. They did not even speak about religion. I can remember a few really odd looks that I got from my parents when I mentioned my past life as an Indian child, and they were just like, where'd you hear about a past life? Where's that coming from? You haven't even been to a church. What's going on with that? Over my life, I became very interested in these kinds of experiences. And in college, I minored in mystical philosophy, which brought me a lot closer to where I am. By the end of college, I joined the Peace Corps because I didn't want it just to be a, talking philosophy. I wanted it to actually have a life of its own, make a difference, and live that way. And I was extremely fortunate to go to Hungary in 1995 with some marvelous American people. One thing that I have to say is those 70 people were among the most brilliant, hardworking, dedicated. Not all of them were liberals, but they were really there to help. And it was quite a wonderful experience. And I was fortunate to meet a shaman there who was really the best shaman that I think I've ever encountered. He was quite a character. And I knew right away, just speaking to him, in a sense, I think we were having a conversation without speaking, that this is what my next step was. And for 20 years, I practiced as a shaman. I led groups of people into journeys where you ask a question and meet your power animal and get an answer. It was only 4 years ago that I thought, I think I'm supposed to channel. And I was sort of working in the mornings on myself a bit. And I was trying to solve some physical and personal problems by meditation. And part of that was movement and stretching. And I wound up watching a lot of YouTube. And I landed on people like Lena Rodriguez, who I eventually met. And she instantly catapulted me into video stardom. Right. So it really is thanks to people like Lena that I am here.
And you two obviously have a very special relationship because I see you guys do stuff together all the time, and it's like brother and sister.
Absolutely.
It's lovely to watch.
It's really nice to be a part of. Yeah, Lena's a remarkably smart person and really just as fun as you could imagine.
Well, if she's fun and remarkably smart, then we're gonna have to talk to her about coming on here as well.
We like fun, smart people.
We do. Yeah. we have to counterbalance Tamara. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just
It's a good thing we don't live in the same state, John.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So it's a. I was impressed before, but the Peace Corps added a whole bunch of impressed for me. I think that's a remarkable thing to do in general. My aunt was one of the first Peace Corps people ever. Back in the 60s, she actually was stationed in Peru and came home with a husband and 3 kids.
Wow. Yeah, what a great place to serve.
Yeah, it was lovely. So this channel that you have, and I say channel, it's a channel of channel. I mean, you're just channeling and channeling and channeling and channeling. And your source that I always hear you reference is the Man in the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's fascinating.
Well, I'll tell you, I was doing a vision quest 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And a vision quest is, Native American. It was led by a Native American lady. And you go and you live on the land for 5 days and you don't eat. Some people don't even drink water. But here I was meditating and doing my doing my quest here. One day, something strange was going on. I was starting to feel really funny and having some extraordinary sort of basically belching experience on this mountain. And I'm sitting there and I'd done this shamanic work for a while. And shamanism, you go in all directions and you go below and you go above. And, this sort of above is sort of a circle of fire that I always bring down. And I'm starting to feel sick. And I said, okay, whoever you are above, am I supposed to get off this mountain right now? And I got a message. Get off this mountain immediately. This was the first time that I really had a conversation. I mean, I was trying to draw this energy in sometimes, but I didn't really have a request and answer period. Got off the mountain, basically fell down the mountain as I realized that I had had an operation a few months before and I had been gassed. So when I was starting to get down to the very last cells that still had food in it, I was getting to the gas cells and I kept constantly knocking myself out.
Oh my God.
This was the first combination of, really asking, although I had drawn in this energy, really asking. And he, if we might call it, he showed himself via a gesture, and it was just a gesture, kind of had a feeling of, Gandalf looking kind of character. So that was the first contact. Just as I started this work, I felt kind of like I'm, channeling, this is what I'm talking to, Man in the Moon. And I did my first video and I go to pick something up from an auction. I just bought some planters and things, but there's a box with lots of stuff. And sure enough, I didn't know it, but I pick out this little statuette. And the statuette is basically exactly the Man in the Moon. I can show it to you right now. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. That'd be great. That'd be great. And while David's getting that, I'd like to tell our audience flat out, Tamara Zoner is one of the most brilliant people I know. That's why I tease her.
Okay, good. Here it is. Here's the image. Maybe you can focus on.
Oh,
this.
Wow.
Oh.
Now, this
That's
totally
beautiful.
cheeseball stuff. I mean, with this overpriced, junk that you get from China. But I literally made this video about this character, and then I got this message.
Wow.
Now, since that time, people have asked, what is Man in the Moon? And I think it's a very interesting idea of the masculine character within a feminine. And I almost think that it's the masculine portion of the feminine, which I feel is coming forward. I've noticed in politics and society in a lot of ways, we could include people like Dolores Cannon and others. We could also include, Nancy Pelosi. Women are coming forward and saying, hear me roar, okay? I'm not just going to be the passive nice person anymore. Justice is at hand. And I just noticed a good deal of that coming forward. So I do feel like there needs to be a balance between the masculine and feminine. And part of that is women and the feminine coming forward to have some radical love action.
Mhm.
Well, David, you're blowing my mind. A lot of our members now know about my past life because I'd never revealed it on this show before, and I recently did reveal it on Kim's show. And in there, I talk about the regression a lot. And there's a section of the regression that I have not talked about on any show, and I'll tell you about it now because you're blowing my mind. Because this back in 1999, in my regression, she said, the regressionist said, is there anything else that's important? And I was trying to grasp this concept. And what I kept saying was, it's time for the feminine. The masculine is waning, or it's, the masculine has been, and now the feminine is coming. And that was under hypnosis coming from source. And I'm hearing you say this, and it's blowing my mind because back in 1999, it came in under hypnosis. It came. So obviously there's something there with that. Tamara, what do you think about all this?
I think it's fascinating. I find the moon so compelling. It just has this amazing energy. And I think that women have that energy where you see a woman who's lit from within, and it draws you to her, and sort of just this energy field, and I love that description. I love what you've both said. I'm curious, both John and David, do you feel that it has to get heavy into the feminine before we actually balance? Does it have to tip one way before it tips to be more equally balanced?
I'll let David talk first.
Sure. So, one thing I want to notice, we have male and female. I would like to say that all of us have those in both of us.
Sure.
So that going towards every man can go towards the feminine in a general principle, just as a rule, just as any woman can move towards the masculine. That's completely within our realm. But I do feel like we have reached a time of sort of hyper masculinity, of this sort of hyper capitalist, the communists are dead. So now it's all about me and making money and moving forward and all of that stuff. That's a reasonable energy at a reasonable time, but it has become the only game in town. I don't think it's an accident that Trump was president. I think it's completely obvious why he was president, almost like as symbolic of what I think is kind of a dying world. I'm sure John probably agree with me. This world is hyper masculine. It's not helping John or I. It's not making us any more happy. And I would say that for all men, that we are trapped in this hyper competitive, if you are a waiter, you're a loser, kind of world, which has no interior reflection. It has no love for others or self. We could not look at people south of the border and say, that could be me, right? I think
no empathy.
I think that's somewhat the realm, some might argue, but somewhat the realm of the feminine. And I guess I want to put it in a broad term. So yes, Sandra, I think that women and men and the feminine, we really have to be very strong. And I do think that COVID has caused us to sit at home and go, what's really important? Maybe my teacher isn't such a bad teacher. My children are driving me crazy. How should I be in that relationship to my family? Maybe I'm part of this. Maybe I need to decide about my neighbor and consider their welfare.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think too, in this hyper masculine culture, women feel pushed to be more masculine, even if it's not our truest nature. We want to do the job and we can't be at home. And it's also almost unacceptable for women today to be that nurturing, stay at home with the children way that, we started off as those gatherers, and nurturers. And it's okay I think the balance is the goal spiritually.
I agree with you, Tamara. The balance is the goal, and I taking this out of spiritual energetics and taking it into just bringing a man or a woman on stage to crack targets out of my hand with a bullwhip, which I did in the corporate world. Right? I stopped using men, and the reason I stopped using men to do that was because a man will step on stage and his testosterone will kick in, and he'll become dangerous, and a woman will come on stage and stay calm and work through the process and bring her femininity in a powerful way, but to control it. So I think what your question earlier was about, it swung one way, does it have to swing all the way the other way before we can come back to balance? I think women are smart enough to know that that's not the way to do it. And I think women because of their calm nature and because of the way they get things done, will be real. And I don't want to say smart enough because they're obviously smarter than me, but in so many. um, but when I watch where the potential of this, the men need to get in touch with their feminine. The women are already really getting in touch with their masculine now. You can see it happening, but I think it really needs to come into balance and harmony for our world. And I think it's only led that way by women.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to say by the feminine,
Right,
because
by the feminine, yes.
We do have that capacity in us. I'll tell you, between the day of my parents' divorce and probably, about maybe 15, 20 years, I was unable to shed a tear. My grandfather died, couldn't cry. Literally, I would want to and could not do it. That is how much I think men are also enslaved by this idea of this is what a man is, right? He is a person who makes money, he wins fights, he, does all these things, he controls, he manages. And, within all of us, there is some degree of the masculine that's, you get stuff done, you organize, and, you manage some things, you arrive on time, there's some stints of that. But look at the great strides that the feminine and women have made. If we start with Jesus, for example, whether you believe him physically or just symbolically, here's a man who was able to very well balance the masculine and feminine. Some might argue that he had more of the feminine nature in him than the masculine. But
well, we can have that conversation in detail if you'd like, but we're not going to do that on this episode.
I would like to just listen to that conversation.
For those of you who know about the past life, I remembered walking with Jeshua ben Joseph in that life, and there was a couple things that were fascinating. And I, oddly enough, a half an hour before I got on this Zoom call, just posted a video called "Biblical Women." And it was all about what the feminine, and all about how Jeshua did not see a difference between a man or a woman. He just saw a person, and he had people who were sharing his teachings, but it was at a time where ancient Jerusalem was like modern day Afghanistan towards women. I mean, women were subjugated back then, and he did not see it that way, and he did not live it that way. And another thing that I remember is that two of our apostles were lovers, and they would have both been stoned to death in that time period. And his exact words was about love is never wrong, no matter what form it takes, and that is just not an acceptable thing that would have happened back, in that time. But yes, I agree with you, David. The balance of masculine and feminine in him was profoundly equal, and I think he was the example of where we're all headed in that balance as well.
Absolutely agree.
That's beautiful.
Wow, that was glad we went there.
Yeah, wait a minute.
I need a minute now. Thanks. Shots. Right. So Tamra, this whole masculine, feminine thing, and all of the concepts of it, from a woman's perspective, or from a female's perspective, how has this shift that's been happening, and this crazy polarities that we've been seeing over the past several years, how's that affected you?
Well, I have definitely shifted in my life into a doer role, so more masculine, providing for my kids and myself. And while that's really important, I've had to be very conscious of, and even pull back from just being in the doing mode, that masculine mode, and remembering that it's in my being that I'm more effective and more efficient and more of who I truly am. So really, a couple of years ago, I was really do, I have to do. And with one of my most favorite and beloved mentors, she helped me remember just the being. just your being, just who you are is enough. And so, like, can we come back into my own personal balance of my feminine and masculine, which I believe we're feminine and masculine for a reason. So I want my feminine to lean more heavily feminine,
Right.
and I want a man who leans more heavily masculine.
Right.
Right. And I think that there's balance and equilibrium, but we're meant to fall out of balance once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there's the idea of balance, but sometimes balance is one is more than the other. That's where the balance lies.
Yeah. What do you
And
think, David?
Well, it's a good question. I would say like each person, really has to explore both factors in themselves. My mom was called to work at a certain point. She was sick and tired of being subject to my father's financial whims. She wanted her own independence. I really admire her for this. She was one of the early shifters. I often tell people, look, you have a secret power. Okay, so yeah, you're at work, you're working this corporate job. Maybe your boss is a jerk, maybe he's a sexist, maybe he's a racist. Just instead of getting really angry and upset about it, let's make an end run about him. Okay, let's predict what he is going to do. Let's connect with your ancestors, let's connect with your guides so that you can smile at him and his words will bounce off of him like a mirror and reflect right back at himself.
Yes.
I always tell people, the feminine is a sort of secret hidden power, and all of us have it, men or women. And if you can access it, you really are smarter than the lugheads who have been running things for a while. You really can just be so in balance that they will rage against you and fall out of balance and show themselves. And in the meantime, they'll be looking at Tamara going, wow, she's that lady that's just, no matter what you throw at her, she's always smiling and she always seems totally in control. I think she should be the boss. There are so many women who I talk to about this, and I'm like, look, ask your guide. Your guide will tell you what to do. They'll tell you to move to a new job. They'll tell you to just keep smiling. They'll tell you that it's going to go in a year. Access that power, man or woman. It is intuitive is, kind of a feminine thing for most people. All of us, every CEO uses their intuition. They might say it's something else.
Let's call it their gut,
Rich
maybe,
and
but that's an
powerful
okay
person,
word.
they access the feminine, they access that intuition. All of us do it. You go to a party and you meet someone and you're just like, I just don't like that person. I don't want that. I just don't like it. 99% of the time you're right? So what is that little voice that's telling you uncomfortable? What is that little voice that's like, I don't really like this bar. I want to go. I want to leave. What is that? I think that if we can speak about the feminine, that voice is just knocking and saying, hey, I'm here. There's more to life than just making the money and paying the rent.
Right. I did a video yesterday very similar, talking about somebody asked me what was the spiritual meaning of the pandemic, and my conversation to them was, well, let's get out of the concept of spiritual meaning and let's talk about reaping and sowing. And I talked about the concept that a lot of the issues in the world are because of the imbalance of the love of money, and the pandemic itself is probably a product of the balance of people trying to make money, in some way, shape, or form. And maybe if they're selling the bat that's infected, they're trying to sell it and they're not storing it correctly because they're trying to sell it and get it out the door and not worry about what's happening when it goes out the door. So it's that imbalance of money. So it seems that we're talking a lot about imbalance in general. When you started awakening to your gifts, which, by the way, I'm always impressed by the fact that you constantly say anybody can do this. That is so humble and so empowering. And what really gets me about it is it's true. But a lot of gifted people, and I say gifted because when I say gifted, what I mean is someone who's realized it and brought it into fruition. a lot of people will leverage that, and you don't seem to be leveraging it per se. You seem to be teaching, and that's one of the reasons why I'm a fan. And so what was your journey to get to that kind of space where you were not going to go off into the ego and in an imbalance of that?
Hmm. That's a great question. I don't know where that. I don't know where that. I think maybe my ego went those directions at some portions in my life, and I got my butt kicked, seriously butt kicked. I will
That's
tell
why I
you.
keep Tamara around. She kicks mine when I get that way.
Okay, good for you, Tamara. Okay,
I
keep it
can do
up.
it from afar too.
You'll get some real enlightenment out of John if you keep it up, right? No, I think I mean I've made major mistakes in my life. I have done unethical things in my life, and I've really severely been punished. I think that I had to lead and make a lot of mistakes and do a lot of things in my life to get to any understanding of self-awareness. I think that is some part of shamanism, is that they will jump on your ego and you will reap the rewards of whatever you've done wrong. I'll just give you like an example. I was very poor after the Peace Corps, and when I say very poor, I mean I lived in San Francisco, and there were times when I had 1 or 2 meals a day. It was really like I had to like experience, I mean, which is unusual for a college educated white guy in California, but I really think the universe made me experience life in a way that I would understand others. So, I am gay, being a minority, that has helped me understand women and what it's like to go through. Not exactly, but I have some empathy for that. So I think there were a lot of life lessons that I made a lot of mistakes before I got to the point. But I really earnestly believe that all of us can do this work. I believe all of us do this work. I believe that we are really intuitive when we go to sleep and we go and manage all these things in the universe. I believe that we have lived multiple lifetimes. All of us have done terrible things and great things. So it is essential to get a little bit beyond judgment of others. We have all done terrible things at some point in our lives, and that doesn't justify the behaviors of others. So I really, really, truly believe that I cannot personally speak to every single person and have such an effect that they are able to move forward in consciousness. That's not possible. It is much more possible for me to teach people how to do this, or to get them to do it themselves and say, here is how you talk to your guide, right? You don't need to call me back. Right now, you have your
Right.
guide, and you should ask them. I don't want you to be addicted to the psychic. I want you
Right.
to learn how to do this for yourself. And, through various things, I have been able to have a very pretty simple method of teaching people to channel. It is very important that you are careful. You don't want to just start channeling anything that shows up. You don't know what that is. So take some protections. If you watch my videos, I give them in detail, but essentially, you create a pyramid, put some love in there, put some loving people in there, and enter it. And then you're going to be safe to do this work. I really encourage anyone to do spiritual work in any fashion. And that includes go to the park today and feed the ducks, right? That is spiritual work, being in nature. It's far more interesting to me that we're having this conversation and that people are turning a page in their spirituality than just predicting the future.
Yes, I love that so much. What do you think blocks people, if we all have these capabilities, and I agree that we do, what do you feel blocks people from experiencing the ability to connect on their own with their guides?
Well, one thing that I think is extremely important is you are always doing spiritual work. If you think about yourself in relationship, I think you mentioned that you have kids and things. If
Mhm.
you think of the relationships that you have with your friends, with loved ones, that is spiritual work. Part of that is being hurt and recovering from that and learning a new dialogue and your conversation. There may be people in your audience's lives who you just can't talk to somebody, your family member, because their politics are driving you crazy. It might really be necessary for you not to talk to them, but you could still meditate and send love to that person, right?
Mhm.
So all of us are doing it all the time. I want to just talk to every single person out there and say, you are working really hard and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. In a planet where we have, two legs and a consciousness, it's just really, really hard to do this work. So just being alive and just being nice and just saying hello and thinking of another, or considering how you might communicate better, or maybe even looking at your own self in a moment of reflection and saying, yeah, I'm not perfect. Maybe I could change that, or forgiving someone. All of that is spiritual work, even if you don't believe one word of it. It
Mhm,
is,
mhm.
right?
I was just saying that earlier today. I'm teaching
Really?
an enrichment class in a high school, and I was telling them it doesn't matter if you believe it. Just go home and try it. I was
Yeah.
teaching them actually Ho'oponopono, and I was just like, just you don't have to believe it. Just go try it and see how you feel after practicing it for a few minutes, and notice maybe if you feel calmer and more relaxed and just clearer and cleaner. Doesn't matter if you believe it. Just try it on.
What's interesting about that is years ago, I used to talk about the correlation of love and fear and that balance and that imbalance. And a lady came to me one day in a session and she said, John, I think I'm going to end my relationship with my mother. And I said, well, why? She says, every time we get together, we just butt heads, we fight, we argue and all this stuff. And I said, well, listen, do this for me. Next time your mom starts to argue, just go there. And before she can say anything, just look her in the eye and say, Mom, no matter what you do or say, I will always love you. And she says, well, I don't think I could say that. I said, I give you permission to say it, but not think it until she gives you a reason to think it. And what happened? She went back. She said, Mom, no matter what you do or say, I'll always love you. Her mom started crying. She said, I love you too. They've been the best friends ever since, because the arguments were about their fear of them not loving each other.
Mm,
Mm.
mm, mm.
And I think it comes down to most fear is the fear of not being loved in some form. And I think if you can negate that fear early on, you can create a much more harmonious world.
Mhm.
So
What do
much.
you think, David?
Well, I just think the story that you and Tamar have given are perfect examples of spiritual work.
Mhm.
You are putting in the work. You are doing something for another. Now, it is really tricky because you don't want to be a doormat in life, but both
Amen.
are in loving communication with another, where you're trying to help them. That is as spiritual as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. Whether you're predicting the future or believe in Jesus or not makes little difference. It's much more important that you, in your actions, if you are an atheist, it does not matter, are in, trying to make the world a better place, if we will.
Mhm.
Again, it's hard to do that without becoming too saintly. You
Mhm.
cannot be a doormat in a society, and you can't be a doormat if you do this kind of work. I find that blocks are a lot of times, we're just involved in life. We have some crises. I mean, I'm not expecting somebody, who's, living in Georgia and fighting for their right to vote to, sit around and meditate. They have work
Right.
to do. They're engaged in really important work. I would suggest that if they could take a moment to meditate, they would come at that work better, and their lives would be happier ones. But we're all very busy solving these personal problems and living in the world that we live in. It just can become all consuming. I don't want people to stop doing that. But if you can take 10 minutes in the morning to stop that and just sit, meditate if possible. Some people need music to do this. In those moments, I think that you will find you are extremely intuitive. And for some people, it happens while they're swimming. That's okay. It doesn't matter to me. But a little bit of a moment to step outside the life that you are leading, that is, I think, what's needed, along with things like, don't watch too much news.
Mhm. Oh, I totally agree with that.
It will put you in such a fear-based place. I mean, let's face it, everything that's going on, there are a lot of horrible things going on right now, more than we could name. There's a horrible thing going on right now with the homeless guy sitting on the corner. If we look at all of that stuff, we'll never get to any type of self-reflection
Right.
or beauty. We'll never be able to go beyond the fear. And if we do go on the fear, maybe we could help that homeless person. But it's very difficult work, and it's not really necessary that people do this intuitive work as a form of like prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's very helpful if you can reflect a bit on your life in a few moments and, make conscious changes for the better. Forgive someone, as you noted, tell somebody you love them. As you've noted, Tamara, help the youth. They are
Mm-hmm.
the future. They're going to decide whether the planet survives or not.
Yes, I have hope for them. They're good people, these teenagers.
Mhm.
Well, they got a good mom, and we've had that conversation many times.
Thank you. Well, and not just my own, the ones that came out of me, but the ones that I'm teaching. I mean,
Uh,
and I'm so excited to give them these tools that I keep telling them, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even their 80s are telling me that they wish they knew this stuff when they were your age. And so some of it might seem flaky to you, but hang on to it.
well, I think the fact that they heard it's in their consciousness in some form.
Well,
And
and they signed up for the class, right? They didn't have to. They chose it. So, just knowing that there are kids who want a different experience. And yes, my kids frankly are lucky because I broke out of that pattern, right? I'm not repeating the cycle that my parents repeated and that some of my siblings are repeating. And I'm making sure that they have this opportunity to choose their own experience and to know that that's possible. And I think that, David, what you're saying, to remind people that you don't have to go be a psychic or an intuitive or make predictions. Every moment, every breath is a spiritual opportunity.
Absolutely.
But back to predictions. How did you get into actually deciding that you were going to do more of that work? Like, what led you from just maybe the shamanic journeying and guiding into actual predictions?
That is a really great question. Kim and we did not know each other, but we came at the same time, very similar time, with exactly the same reasons. When Trump got elected, I did not sleep all night. I was freaked out. I could tell, and first of all, 3 days beforehand, I saw a gigantic rogue wave, and I took one look at that rogue wave before he was elected, and I said, "Uh-oh, this is going to be bad." And so I predicted he would become the president. And then when he was starting to do these things, my partner said to me, maybe he won't be so bad. And I looked at him and I said, he will be just as bad as you could possibly imagine. And I did actually tell him, people will die. A lot of people are going to die because of this man. And I just knew that to be true. So I was pretty freaked out. All my family lives in America. I care a lot about them. I care a lot about my friends. I care a lot about my people. And so I was kind of freaked out, but I got the similar message, was like, there's a reason for this. We are here to learn, and it will work out. We will not become a fascist dictatorship. Your job, part of it, is to predict things, but part of it is just to reassure people. And instead of being like, oh my God, this is outrage, this is terrible, oh my God, reflect a little bit and go, okay, why is it happening? How has our culture changed to produce this character? Well, there's tons of media that are doing it. And I really believe media can be completely good or completely bad, just depending on how it is utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got a message, if you do this, people will be calmed. And if you do this, people will be able to step back a little bit and see that there is a reason why these things are happening, and see that this is an opportunity to learn. COVID is terrible. It's also an opportunity for you to go home and say, what am I in relation to my children or my partner or my home or, my backyard? It has given us all an opportunity to think about what's really valuable in life. As people are leaving this life, it has reflected on, hey, that could be me. I can't tell you how often I call my parents now because I'm just freaked out by it. But, it's like, I was really motivated very much to help people become at least aware of why these things are happening and how they could use these experiences as a ladder into their own spirituality and their own life and their own existence. If we might think just simply of wearing a mask, okay, it's not a law, you don't have to do it. Well, that's giving everybody a choice.
Mhm.
Will you do something small and kind of irritating to save your neighbor? Let's just think of this as a moral question that's been set before all of us. For some people, the answer has been no, I will not do that. I will not take any, anything that's even slightly irritating to me. Nope, it's about me. And, there are so many others who said the opposite thing. I'm young, I'm not going to get sick, but I care about somebody else.
Right.
There's so many people out there who have, think of the doctors and nurses working night and day to save these people in an environment where their lives are constantly threatened for their throwing the truth. There are so many heroes that have evolved from this. One thing I will also note is no guru has evolved. There has been no Martin Luther King for us to follow. There has been no, Kennedy or Lincoln for us to follow, really. It has been up to us to become our own gurus in this time. And I always tell people, do not follow someone. Take what's useful from the Dalai Lama and apply it to your own life and use it in your own way, because I'm sure the Dalai Lama has faults, just like everybody else. There is no guru now. It's up to us to become that guru. And just doing these simple things for others in our culture, that has shown great courage for a lot of people.
David, if you get a chance, you should watch some of the videos on my John of New channel, because I talk about the teachings of Jeshua, and you just described it.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here just basking in the energy of you. You're so loving. You have so much love, and you're so of service and in service. It's just really beautiful. I'm going to be subscribing to your channel and like binging.
Thanks so much, you guys. You're making me blush. Really.
I trust that you'll do good things with these kind words. And
oh no, I was so excited to have you on, because I've seen what not only the work you do, but I've seen who David is, and it's beautiful. And then when I talked to Kim Carey, she says, "Oh my God, he's such a beautiful person."
Say the same thing about her.
She's amazing as well. Yes, she absolutely is.
Yeah, you both, the interview with the two of you was really beautiful too. I just love it because, frankly, you don't meet a whole lot of people who, at least I don't, I'll speak for myself. I don't meet a ton of people who I feel like raise me up a level. And I just am so grateful to be in the presence of John Davis and David Johnson, which, by the way, is a little funny.
Oh, isn't that weird? John Davis and David Johnson. I feel all never
warm.
thought of that.
When you do energy work, you feel warmer. I feel warm. Like I just have like heat throughout my, my arms, and I just feel warm and so much love and in service and on purpose. And it's just really beautiful. So thank you. Thank you both.
Sure. I have to tell you, I feel exactly the same way. Maybe it's just when I get to these spiritual places with people, that aspect of them is what I see. But I tell you, every single client, and that I have to tell you is the most moving thing about my work is, especially during, Blasey Ford Kavanaugh, you get some people who would tell you stories about their lives there, and you would just shake your head going, what are you complaining about? How these people survived the childhoods that they are expressing and the things. I was really quite overwhelmed by the, beauty and power of like every single person I talked to. And I would say that if you really talk to them, if you had this space where they were safe to talk, they would reveal incredible power and beauty to them. And I mean, every single person, if they were in a safe place where they could say that.
You're absolutely right. That happens. I run a meetup where, I just basically described people I wanted to hang out with and they show up and they're open-minded and open-hearted and everyone, and I tell them, just show up as you are, because this is the safe space for all the, I don't even say this, but it comes out every time. People will describe themselves as the black sheeps of their family. And this
Yeah.
last weekend, one woman said, I don't say I'm the black sheep. I say I'm the tie-dyed sheep. And we all love that, because we're all coming together trying to actually find our real family, our soul family, the ones who recognize us and support us just in who we are. And everyone just wants to be seen and heard. And you're doing that for people on your channel and your life and your presence every moment. I love it.
Thank you.
So David, how do you feel about reading Tamra?
Ooh.
Sure.
You take your time, you take whatever you need to do
Yeah, I
that.
already gave permission. So
Okay, and just to maybe Tamara, you could tell me your last name.
yes, Zoner, Zoner, which is my maiden name, but not my legal name. Does that matter?
It's kind of weird that it's not a variation of John David and Davis and Johnson.
I know. Just call me Janetta Davison.
Can you tell me what month were you born? I was going to ask your birthday, but I don't want to be that specific. What month were you born?
December.
December. What's your mom's first name?
Mary Jean.
Mary Jean. Okay. So it would be useful if you, okay. So tell me more about Tamara Zoner. Now I'll tell you guys, this is really quite funny. When I read on a person, I'm actually looking at a corral, like a ranch. I know that sounds completely ridiculous, but here then, and then I'll see Tamara in the corral. And there I've got Tamara in the corral. And it's sort of like what comes into her corral, what she's doing in the corral. And I'll tell you, in her corral, Tamara looks really dynamic. She looks really dynamic. Oh, this is interesting too. Tamara, I see you like standing in one corner of the corral, and you're like, no, I don't want to be in this one corner of the corral. So I kind of get that you are sort of moving and expanding into, sort of new realms that you didn't necessarily know you would do. You're definitely not a person that's uncornered. You seem very self-possessed. I also see the fourth wall of this corral breaks away and it stars. To me, that means clearly she's doing spiritual work. Without knowing anything about you, it's like the first 10 minutes of my reading. So we already kind of know a lot of these things. Ooh, let's see, where are we going here with Tamara? Okay, we're going way out into space with Tamara. Okay. Well, one thing I'll tell you is if you wanted to channel, you could. It's just a question of wanting to. And when I say that, you don't have to do it in the, I'm no longer conscious. It's like a sleep thing. It could just be simple, images you get from the universe or something like that. It doesn't have to be like Edgar Cayce or anything else. It doesn't have to be that dramatic. I see you teaching. And doing that teaching you're doing is more important than you realize. Those kids some of them are gonna retain this information, and it will make a big difference. It will be, it's like you're planting a seed in them. Do not underestimate that. Also, notice that people notice the fact that you just walk through the room, you make people feel good. People can just look at you and John smiling and they just feel lovely and accepted and positive. But there's something more, Tamara. There's something more. I would wonder, have you ever done anything like a past life regression?
I haven't done that yet.
I would consider it quantum healing, because I'm wondering, so I'm just going to ask, is Tamara a second wave? Is she a second waver? Yeah. Tamara, I think you're a second waver. Do you know what that is?
I don't. What does that mean?
So Dolores Cannon talks about the 3 waves of volunteers. The first wave of people are basically, spiritual entities or something that have volunteered to come to Earth at a difficult time, right? Spirit, the universe doesn't want to directly influence our planet. That would be wrong, but they could kind of send these messengers to teach us, and people could choose a better direction. The first waivers came, very difficult for them. I think that you're a second waiver. I think that you kind of volunteered to come to earth at this time to do the work, to help convince people, persuade them to go in a different direction. I would say you're uniquely skilled at this. Most people, including me, have real difficulty. You're talking about the people who are the black sheep.
Mhm.
Those people are all the second waiver type. They're just like, what am I doing on this planet with these crazy people? But you've sort of moved through this in a really good way. It's like you don't take it too much to heart that there's things going wrong. You sort of see people and understand they're you know they're good people just doing bad things. That's kind of how you perceive things, which is a very useful way. Did you have any direct question you want to ask about the future?
Oh gosh. I sort of shy away from direct questions, but yeah, I mean, I have some. Everything you've said so far is so spot on. The thing you said about space was, I got shivers because I had an experience recently in a really good meditation. Um, and then the teaching, yeah, everything is so, it feels so spot on. And John was all like, yeah. Okay, my question. Yes. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm almost at a year in doing coaching and speaking full time, and now have forayed into the educational system, which yes, I even reflected recently how surprised I am at how much I love it. And how much I want to be working with younger people, not just the senior community that I came out of. So, but then of course I go back and forth of like, it's not working, it's working, it's not working, it's working. So I know I have to be patient. I know it's working. I trust that it's working. And when will it feel like it's working and sustainable, and that I'm able to really, do this forever and not have those moments of backtracking to maybe I should just substitute teach a while. So when will there be evidence, I guess, is the question.
In a year and a half.
Okay.
In a year and a half, you'll have a lot more confidence in what's going on, if only because you'll have a track record of, hey, it worked for 365 days. I guess I'm doing okay. Now you understand that you just totally described what you're doing on a sort of conscious level, which is, trying to be positive. I would absolutely every morning over your cup of coffee, imagine the life that you want to have and write it down. I want to make X amount of money working with kids doing spiritual stuff. Nothing wrong with saying that and writing that and sort of sending that as a message to the universe, right? And I do believe you should handwrite it, don't type it, because it's just something physical goes on with your body. Now you understand when you're doing that, you've already taken a big risk. You're already saying, I want to do this. And what if universe says, no way, you can't? Okay, so you've taken a huge risk and put that out there, which is really the first step. And that's what we do when we try to manifest things, is write them. I understand that if they're not right for us, sometimes we won't get our manifestation. We're really not supposed to be doing that or be together with that person. This is why it sometimes doesn't work out. But for you, it is working out, because that is who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. You are supposed to go to this population and feel the joy of that teaching. I would say, and there's nothing wrong with asking for money. There would be something wrong if you exploit others for money, but there's nothing wrong if you ask for more or a little bit more fame or anything like that. I feel like there's going to be a moment in a year and a half where we're actually going to be talking to a great many people. I see you standing in front of, I'm going to say, at least 300 people, and you're helping them in some particular way. They are really wrapped in attention by you. So just keep in mind, like, just doing this radio show is practice, you being in front of a lot of people. But I see them visually seeing you, and it really making a difference for those people. And that's the moment where you're like, I got it. I really am. We all have imposter syndrome. That's like when you're going to go, I'm not an imposter. All these people are coming up to me and saying, thank you so much. My life has changed. And I think that is like really what you want to do. is change the lives of others. If you every morning just sat there and envision yourself doing it, and feel the positive emotions of you doing that, it will become even more the truth. I'd say it's the truth right now. And I'm just going to ask, is there anything blocking her? Any dangers? Anything she needs to be aware of? No, you're shaking your head. No, there's nothing stopping you tomorrow.
Mm. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Wow. You
That's
pegged her.
good.
You pegged her, buddy.
Okay, good. Good. Good.
One of the things you
Great.
said, David, you said that she walks in the room and makes an impact, and that's exactly how I met her.
No kidding.
I was in a dark room, and and it was like people in there acting like it was a church because it was this quiet little dark room, and she walked in the room, and the room lit up, and everyone smiled, everyone turned and gravitated, and the whole room lit. I mean, it was amazing. And that's what, when I bumped into her on LinkedIn later, I was like, I know who that is, and that's why I got her to come on to one of my interviews.
So there you go. There's a first example of how just you, and this is total second waiver stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Second waivers are the people who walk through the mall and everybody's just like, oh, I was so mad at my mom and now I feel okay. Or, maybe I will buy that puppy for my child. Oh, hey, maybe I should do the right thing in that situation. You're the kind of person.
So much, and it rings so true. And John was the first person to kind of say, hey, this was my reflection of you. And then as I looked back, I worked in senior living for 6 years and at one community for 4, and I started to accept what they would say, that I changed the room when I walk in it. And then when I left last year, I go back to that very senior community and run a happiness circle. And sometimes I sing for them, and they will tell me it's you're different. It's not the same. Like, it's you. It's not like, this replacement is wonderful. She's lovely. We love her. And it's not the same. Like, I have come to own that I can make an impact on the energy of a room. And I appreciate that with all modesty. And that second waiver thing is so cool, because I said to myself a few years ago, I'm a bridge from the person who is thinking very like grounded, like earthly, human, not so spiritual, but not really happy there, and curious. And I'm that bridge. Like, you can take my hand and I'll walk you over it so you can expand and like expand into who you already are. Yeah. So that was fun.
David, that was so impressive. It was exactly why I love watching your videos on YouTube, because it's you do that like for the world in a way. And one day I will schedule an appointment for you, because now I want one too.
Yeah, now I need a regressionist. Hey?
Yeah. There you go. Now, before we go, I've heard that you're David, that you are doing regression stuff now. Is that correct?
I am almost finished with my internship for quantum healing.
Oh, right? Wow.
I encourage anybody, take a look at quantum healing. Take a look at Alba Weinman, who's doing a version of quantum healing. And I mean, it will knock your socks off. She is just really going directly. And again, this just sort of reinforces everybody channels. If you hypnotize somebody and you put a camera on them, they will tell you, they will go to spirit and they'll be like, one thing I find so telling, I won't tell them to do this. They will start talking about themselves in the third person. So Tamara will be there, she's hypnotized, and she'll sort of think, well, Tamara, and they'll start talking about themselves like this, as if they are spirit. And absolutely revelatory stuff. And I have complete skeptics come here and like sit there, and I mean, by the end, they're just like, well, I'm not sure I'm a believer, but man, I'm never going to forget this in the rest of my life. Wow. And, maybe somebody's going to even argue, if they're more scientifically, philosophically sort of based, they might say, okay, this is just your subconscious creating this story that makes your life, clearer. Well, okay, let's suppose that it is. What's wrong with that? Number 2 is, that's a pretty brilliant subconscious that can create a story that literally touches on every single problem that I have in my life right now. I would really, really encourage people to do this work. It can be a little bit expensive, but when you're watching a video of Dave predicting something, that's one thing. When you're looking at a video of yourself in trance talking about these portions of a past life that you don't really even believe in, and all of a sudden the past life is telling you this is why you have a pain in your neck, you got beheaded. And then they get up and they don't have a pain in their neck anymore. I've relieved several physical problems from this work. I for 15 years I've had problems lifting this arm because of a kayaking accident. So I, again, really reinforces that, you can have a career as a quantum healer. So if you're just listening and you'd like to help people in the way that you both do, almost anyone who is curious about this work can go and do this for others. You can do it in a formal way or not a formal way. And you'll find that, the most random person will lie down and they'll tell you about the last lifetime, and so much information is coming through that you're really tempted to ask them questions about your own life. You're not supposed to, but you're really tempted that you're just like, okay, what about that? What about those stock market tips? Can you? It's brilliant. It's brilliant stuff.
Fascinating. So where do they find you, David? Where do people find you? I know you have a YouTube channel, but what's it called? And
I think you can, if you go to YouTube and you put in Moonride Dave Johnson, you will find me. Believe it or not, Dave is less common than David. So it's hard to find a more common name than David Johnson, actually.
Well, David, let me tell you how famous you've become on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you just type in David Johnson, you are the first page of everything.
Oh, no kidding.
You are the man.
No kidding. So, and is it David, not Dave?
David.
No
I did that today. Actually.
I had no idea. You can also look at my website, which is moonride.com.au. Okay, so don't forget the AU because that's Australia.
Right.
But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Cool. I know John will put all that in the show notes on our Facebook page and on the podcast website.
Wonderful.
Any last bits of wisdom, words from either of the?
Well, I just want to thank David for coming. This has been a very exciting for me because, like I said, I'm a fan, and I'm really excited about the work that you're going into now because I'm sure that you're just going to broaden your reach. So thank you, David, for coming.
Hey, thank you guys. This is a wonderful show. I swear I could talk to you guys for the next 6 hours.
I know we could keep going for hours.
See, that's what's so great about Tabra. Tabra keeps it on time because I will go on for hours and hours.
I do. I'm like, all right, this is probably our longest episode yet, but it's been really fun. So it's worth it.
Totally. So maybe we'll do it again another time, David, if you're ever game. That'd be great. So Tamara, why don't you take us out of here?
All right. I want to thank David and John and all of our listeners for being a part of this experience. And I hope that you gleaned some incredible wisdom and felt that rise in the energy like I did, at least. Let us know what you think. We love your comments. We love your questions. We love your suggestions. And of course, check out David Johnson because, oh my gosh, I'm going to be stalking him now too. Have an amazing day. Create it that way. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.